Hi ducks, hi, how are you? Now, so I just placed this over here, which I shouldn't really do because this disconnects from here and it's really annoying, so you might find me stumbling around at the end. Now ducks, how do you get your media? Do you watch YouTube? Do you buy a paper? Do you get it from independent journalists online? Do you watch the BBC online? Do you watch traditional media? Do you have a Sky box? Do you have a Virgin box? How do you get your news? Well, I can only speak for myself how I get my news. And I get my news mainly from YouTube and the Apple TV box that I have in my flat. So I have a Reuters app, which I use to catch up on the news every now and again to get a mainstream perspective. Sometimes I watch the BBC, but normally Newsnight and through their channel on YouTube. I watch Channel 4, again through their app on YouTube, and sometimes on their news app that is on the Apple TV that you can get on the Apple TV as an extra app. And sometimes I catch up on my weekly news from Channel 4 that way. But I don't buy a paper. I also, as I say, get my news from YouTube. I watch a lot of American news content. I'm fascinated by American news because they're so crazy over there. Basically, their political system, you think it's bad in Britain and you think it's corrupt in Britain. You try living in America, but I'm fascinated by their news and their politics. So I sometimes get my news from RT America. I used to get it from CNN, but I don't so much anymore. Just like I used to get it from BBC News, their 24-hour news channel, but I don't tend to go on that much now either. So I get my news from America from a left-wing perspective. So I listen to Jimmy Dawes and watch his channel on YouTube. I watch the Young Turks, TYT, and their channel on YouTube. I also watch TYT Politics and their correspondents updating people on affairs running in the primaries at the moment for the Democratic and the Republican candidacies to go forward till November's elections in 2018. I get my news from, there's one guy I've come across in the UK. Now I've searched for news content from independent journalists in the UK and I can't find that much, probably because the way the algorithm works on YouTube now. It doesn't tend to push you towards that sort of independent content anymore. It tends to push you to what we consider to be mainstream news, CNN, MSNBC, BBC, stuff like that. So the YouTube channels that this one guy who's got this YouTube channel is, I can't remember his name because I've only just started watching him, and from what I can gather I've been watching him for the last couple of days actually. It's only in the last 24 hours, 48 hours that I've been watching his content. He was live streaming yesterday on Sunday for 2 hours and 23 minutes, but I didn't watch it all. I came to it a bit late and then tuned off because I don't tend to watch the live streams because I find they go on for a bit longer and my concentration doesn't last that long. But I've watched his channel and the content is really good. And as a British sort of independent journalist on YouTube, I value what he has to say in his content at the moment. And I've been watching him, but he's the only one I've seemed to come across, and I came across him by chance going through other stations, other channels, like by other people who I've subscribed to. So as you can see, I get my news from a range of media, but in the UK it tends to be mainstream because there isn't actually a lot of independent media. Now in America there is. You do have the Jimmy Dore Show, TYT and stuff like this, and they produce good content and they look at all aspects of American politics and geopolitics and sometimes particular countries' politics if it's relevant in the news. They tell you a side of politics that you don't get in the mainstream, and they highlight stuff that you see in the mainstream where you realize it's in America it's corporate funded news, and by Lockheed Martin funds, I believe Lockheed Martin funds a number of news networks in America, so you can't really get a true perspective and any anti-war message in America, and it's the same in Britain really. You have channels like Channel 4 who can be anti-war, but the BBC is a bit like corporate media, but not like corporate media, because it's the state mandatory channel. It's difficult to get independent media in this country. So what I've basically done with Fresh Brew in the past on the podcast was to give a reflection of just people. At first it was siblings, and they're coming across politics as they came across it on the news and in the media, and how they related to it and what their feelings were on particular issues from an ordinary person's point of view, if there can ever be such a thing as an ordinary person, the common person, if you like, the average voter, if you like. That's what I'm trying to do with this channel now. So with my channel, you will notice I will do LGBT stuff and trans stuff, and I will sit on the sofa, which is opposite me now, to give you a different perspective. But when I sit in front of this map, that gives you a clue that this podcast is about politics or stuff that's interested me in the news, that's got my attention and made me want to sit down and say something. So with this channel, I'm going to try and do that. I don't know whether to call it Fresh Brew or whether to call it something else, but I think I will stick to Fresh Brew for now, or I will just drop Fresh. I don't know. You will see when I post this vlog what I've decided to call it. It's something I want to do because I have an interest in the news. So you are getting my opinion, my lay opinion of what's happening in geopolitics and in the news and current affairs in Britain, in the UK, in Europe, and in America and around the world. It's just my personal opinion for what it's worth. Might not be worth much to you, but it's how I've come to a realization of the subject and what's going on. So I would like to think you would give me some time to listen to what I've got to say and get it from an ordinary person's perspective to see if you agree or you disagree, whether you support me or you don't support me, and whether you can learn something from what I say and get a different sort of perspective on the subject. So this is what this one was about. This is about media and where you get your news from. Now, you have to pick and choose your media. A lot of people, as we know, are going off mainstream media because they see it as warmongering, corporate, state institutionalized. They see it as pushing an agenda, the neoliberal order, the neoliberal systems agenda, and not looking outside of that. The BBC have recently come down on independent journalists throughout Britain and around the world because they fear that they're taking their audience away from them, and they are. My audience is definitely in the demographic that the BBC channels like the BBC News and CNN and Sky News would like to get, but they're going online now. They're going off the mainstream platforms and they're going on to the internet and they're looking for better news content. We Are Change is a good channel, I think, on YouTube. I know they're complaining about the way that YouTube is suppressing them in some way, but I don't know whether I want to go there, because on my channel I was told that my channel would not be monetized until I got over 10,000 views. So whether I get to that in the short to medium term or whether it takes a bit longer, I don't know, but I just do these vlogs because I like doing them, and it's my opinion. Take it or leave it. Agree, different point of view. It's what I do. Press for Change is not Press for Change. That's a trans charity. Was a trans charity. We Are Change is a good platform for independent journalists. You can see them on the ground in countries where the mainstream media doesn't go to. They tackle issues and look at opinions in the mainstream media in a different perspective than they're sharing with you. So, for instance, as an example, the mainstream media was plugging the argument that the Syrian gas attack in Douma was a gas attack, and that the Syrian government had orchestrated the gas attack on its own people. within days, America bombed with French and UK help. There was no waiting around for an investigation. There was no waiting around for journalists on the ground to see anything. Nothing. It was a day, 24 hours after the bombing, that Robert Fisk, British independent journalist who's award-winning, and I believe has worked for The Independent and the BBC at one point, but I might be wrong on that, don't quote me, but he did work for The Independent. He was on the ground and he basically went to the clinic, and the people at the clinic told him no, there was no gas attack. The people were suffering from hypoxia from being underground for so long, and the explosions and the bombing from the Syrian and Russian government had whipped up smoke and dust and stuff, and they'd come into the clinic having difficulty breathing. Apparently someone shouted out gas and got loads of hoses out and started spraying people down, but there wasn't actually a gas attack as such. But it was reported in the mainstream media that there was. But you had to go to places like Jimmy Dawes to realise that journalists who were on the ground, who weren't affiliated necessarily to mainstream news, but were on the ground investigating, had discovered what had happened, that it wasn't a gas attack, and that the gas attack never happened. And it's just amazing. You have to go to independent journalists to get this truth. So you have to ask yourself the question, what is the BBC, who have tackled people on their shows for debating this very subject and saying, why would Assad do this to his own people at this stage in the war when he's winning, questioning it, and then the BBC then questioning the ex-First Sea Lord of the Navy, why he didn't sound more patriotic towards his country, and why he was distancing himself from this narrative that it was a gas attack and that Syria needed to be bombed and all the rest of it. It was independent journalists like Jimmy Dawes that brought this up and noticed this and first introduced me as just an ordinary viewer to Robert Fisk's report and made me think, so yeah, it was. It wasn't a gas attack. Yeah, the mainstream media said it was, and portrayed it as such, and whipped everybody up into a frenzy for a gas attack. Now, before anybody can start saying anything, I am no friend of Assad. I am no friend of Putin. As a member of the LGBT community, I've got seriously grievances against Putin, and I've got no time for his political system. The oligarchs of Russia have taken so much away from the Russian people, their sovereign wealth and all the rest of it. I've got no time for the Russians. And as for Assad, barrel bombing his own people and causing the civil war to go on longer than it needed to. No, I've got no time for them. But you shouldn't go around lying about incidents in other countries to get involved in wars. Let's not forget the West, especially the US, has been trying to overthrow the government of Syria since the 50s. Since the 50s. So, when you hear news about this, you are naturally outraged if you watch the mainstream media, but you have to dig a little deeper. And when you dig a little deeper, you realise that there's something more going on here. Something way more going on here. So you go to independent journalists. You have to be careful. Some of them sign up to conspiracy theories I wouldn't sign up to. And some of them sign up to political standpoints that I would not encourage or stand for at all. But some of them are gold. They really get out there. I tend to go for left-wing journalists who have a left-wing stance. Yes, I do, or have a liberal-minded opinion on issues. But the news is what means to me. I want to get below the mainstream, or get above the mainstream, or get behind the mainstream to see what is actually really going on in the world. The simple reason why Syria is the shithole that it is at the moment is because they want to build pipelines through Syria from the Middle East, from Persia and not from Persia, from Saudi Arabia up through the Gulf states into Syria to go into Europe to pump gas in. So we no longer reliant on. So Europe and America, well, Europe is no longer reliant on Russian gas and oil. But they don't tell you that in the mainstream media. They don't say, oh, yes, well, they're fighting. Like in Iraq, why are in Afghanistan? Why are we in Afghanistan? It's got $1 trillion worth of mineral rights. You don't hear that in the mainstream media. You also don't hear that they want to also build a pipeline through there. You don't hear that in the mainstream media either. There's a lot going on in the world that's not as straightforward as the mainstream media likes to portray. So you have to go on platforms like YouTube and dig and find jewels, and they come up, and you can see really good things in the news and get behind, get on top, get behind, get round the back of mainstream news output. So you shouldn't necessarily believe everything the mainstream tells you. It's told you, and you can see that over the incidents at the moment with Gaza, how the reporting with Gaza has been. Mainstream media has tended to side with the Israelis to some degree. There's been a level of condemnation of so many people have been killed and wounded at the Gaza border recently. But the IDF just puts out the stuff that it puts out, and the mainstream media reports it with no investigation, doffs its hat to Israel, and continues on with the military-industrial complex as they all love it to be. Remember, Lockheed Martin sponsors a number of news networks and programs in the US. They are a big weapons manufacturer. You don't need to say much more than that. So I hope you come to my channel when I've got things to say about a political issue that's going on, and you might think, yeah, I'll listen to her, I'll see what she's got to say, see if it's interesting, see if she's up on the ball, see if she's got it all wrong, see if she changes my mind on a subject. I don't know. But I hope you do come to them and you see them as such. And you see them as another outlet for alternative media. Now, I'm not going to be investigating on the ground. I'll be compiling all my information from the vast number of channels that I watch online and the podcasts, some of the podcasts I listen to online. I will collate all that information. I will sit down and I will do a vlog, and I will talk about the issue that has got me up that day to sit in this chair in front of this map and do a vlog for you. It's nearly time to end. I have to click it so it goes back on again. I'll do this slicker next time. Trust me, it'll be slicker. It'll be a slicker move. I'll have it down here or something. You won't see what I'm doing. So yeah, that's the vlog. I hope you come to these and you give it a shout, a look, and you just listen to what I have to say and see if I change your mind, see if you agree with me, see if you disagree with me. So that's it. I just wanted to do a brief vlog to explain that I am going to be doing some geopolitics stuff, but as I say, I don't know if it's going to be under the Fresh Brew brand. I'm not sure. For those of you listening to watching this and thinking, is she going to do any more vlogs or blogs, podcasts online? I'm in talks with some people. We're going to see how it goes. There's no guarantee that everything will go according to plan, but hold your breath, wait and see. Well, don't hold your breath and wait and see. Just look out for these vlogs, and if I've got something to update you with, bringing a new podcast up together, I'll see. But I have some ideas for some podcasts, and I'd rather look at doing those than maybe doing Fresh Brew and just keeping Fresh Brew here online on my vlogs, but I don't know. So thanks for watching. Like, subscribe and comment, and I will see you soon. Goodbye, Dax. Bye.